The garden is an open, inclusive, Christ-like community.
where people from many paths
gather to explore, engage, and seek inspiration.
To transform our world.
Through the unconditional love of God.
explore,
engage,
Inspire.
We're glad you're here.
Hello, gardeners. Welcome to worship. We're so glad you're here. Our prayer is that you will experience the love of God in and among our community of faith. We know that this time apart keeps extending, and we want to make sure that we make every effort to be in touch with you. Our garden leadership team has made an attempt to call the people who are on our roster, and so if for some reason you have not received a call or you haven't had a call, a voicemail, please let us know, because that means you're not on our roster, and we want to make sure that everyone is included in the garden family at this time. We're so glad you're here, because today we're exploring Feelin Groovy, trying to figure out just exactly what that means. Welcome.
Slow down, you move too fast. You gotta make the morning last. Just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. And a lamppost, what you knowin'? I've come to watch your flowers growing. Ain't you got no rhymes for me? Do 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 do, feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. I got no deeds to do, no promises to keep. I'm dappled and drowsy and ready to sleep. Let the morning time drop all its petals on me. Life, I love you, all is groovy. Slow down, you move too fast. You gotta make the morning last. Just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. Feeling groovy. Feeling groovy.
all know these words of peace. Join with me. Shalom, salam, namaste, peace. Will you join us in prayer? Good morning, God. If we were asked to give up everything in our lives to follow someone that would lead us to something much better, would we go? Probably not. We would want proof or physical evidence. We would want to talk to others that had already had the experience and knew the outcome. We are so wary of scams and cons that we couldn't follow blindly. Just like those that gathered at Woodstock, we too join in groups of like-minded people. It may start with Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts and lead to things like Kiwanis or Rotary, the VFW, the American Legion. We join the symphony or the theater, hobby clubs, and we attend religious activities. It brings us happiness and a fulfillment to enrich our lives. God, may we join your club. May we faithfully follow in your Son's steps. Provide us with nourishment with loaves and fishes. Nourish our hearts and our souls. May we ask for you to grant us love and peace, guidance and resolve for ourselves and for those who need your touch. We ask for forgiveness for what we have done wrong. We ask for healing for the ill and peace in our communities. May you bless each and every one in our world. Amen.
Seems I got to have a change of scene, 'cause every night I have the strangest dream, imprisoned by the way it could have been, left here on my own, or so it seems. I got to leave before I start to scream, but someone locked the door and took the keys. You feeling alright? I'm not feeling too good myself. You feeling alright? I'm not feeling too good myself. Boy, you sure took me for one big ride, and even
Spending a lot of time in quarantine has been a challenge to my creative energies. So I'm going to ask you today, if you have ideas for worship or themes, share them. Either email me or even put them in the comments on Facebook here, and we'll add them to the list of themes. Today's theme is Feelin Groovy, and it comes to us from Dana Cochran Wiley. So I had to do a little research. What does it exactly mean to be feelin' groovy? Well, the word groovy originates in jazz slang. It refers to music that's swinging and tight, funky, and in the pocket. The analogy is to the groove on a vinyl record. The musicians are so together that it's like they're the needle, guided by the groove. Thus, feelin' groovy, getting in the groove. It was a popular term used in the late 1950s with the beatniks, and then it really took hold in the 1960s. As I look, I have to tell you, I've come to believe that Jesus was a guy who was pretty committed to feeling groovy. He was one who liked to go with the flow, who liked to connect with those around him and to live in the groove. Jesus mostly avoided big cities and usually gathered with folks in places where he didn't have to deal with the man or the Roman authorities. He could most often be found traveling from city to city, hanging out with his friends, making new friends, sharing in a message of hope and peace, harmony and love. He enjoyed a nice glass of wine and a good meal, and he knew there was enough for everyone. So whenever he ate, everyone ate. He's feeling groovy. There's a great story about such a gathering in Matthew's Gospel, the 14th chapter. It goes like this. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing this, the crowds followed him on foot from town to town. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, and he broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. I believe that Matthew adds that besides note at the end because at the time the only people who were actually counted were men. He wanted to make sure that everyone knew that there were many more in the final numbers, and it included children and women. There were a lot of people. There are a few important points here I want us to pick up from this story. First, Jesus was trying to get away on his own. He's just learned that his cousin John has died, and I'm sure he wanted some time to be alone and to grieve. But Jesus' plan did not unfold like he thought it would. Much like a mother who can't get away from her kids, the people needed Jesus, and he could not be alone. What I love about this is how Jesus handles the situation, is that he realizes soon on that this is going to be different than what he thought or even wanted. In our class, Haven't You Suffered Enough?, we've talked a lot about how one can go about a situation that they have no control over. They can either make the best of it or lament at what could have been, which most often leads to stress. Or they could try something different with the situation. And the difference really is all about our attitude. I think it's an important reminder to all of us as we are living our lives in ways we really did not anticipate right now. Brenda Lyon reminds us that it is important to be able to shift our way of thinking into a position of positive situational focus. If Jesus had been committed to something that was, well, at that time impossible, it would have been an absolute waste of his time and energy. But his ability to take the focus off of himself and his needs made him available to others, and ultimately fed not only his spirit, but served as a lesson to those around him as well. Today, when we all find ourselves living in situations where we don't have any control, it's important to reposition ourselves in ways that helps us to create an environment of growth and change. Positive, situational focus. It didn't only work for Jesus, but his shift also led those around him, his disciples, to have their own shift in a way. Just as Jesus had a plan, the disciples had a plan that night too. They wanted to take a break. They wanted time away. They had just enough food for themselves. So they start working on a plan for displacing all of these people and just taking some time to take care of themselves, to get a little rest, to have a little something to eat and to relax. But Jesus reminds them they are now his followers, and as disciples, they've agreed to care for others. So Jesus says, these folks are now part of our community, and they need to stay right here, and you are going to feed them. Wait, what? The disciples had enough only for themselves, not 5,000 plus. But Jesus makes it clear there is more than enough and then some. And sure enough, when the time comes to eat, everyone had their fill, and they ended up feeling full, feeling groovy. You know, August marks the 51st anniversary when a group of like-minded people came together in a farm in upstate New York to get away from the noise of the world, to get away from the depressing news of the Vietnam War, and to come together in peace and harmony. The event was a brainchild of 4 men, all in their 20s, who originally had the idea to hold a music festival at Howard Mills Industrial Park in Wallkill, New York. It's about 30 miles from the town of Woodstock. But only about a month before the festival was to occur, people in that town could see the type of people, hippies, that were going to be at an event like this. And an event would attract those that they didn't really want. So they voted against this concert, which was already well into the building and planning stage. So these 4 guys, well, they were just ready to go off into the sunset and take their loss. But that's when a guy named Max Yasker came to their attention. Max was a cow farmer with a 600-acre farm. Max agreed to rent his farm for Woodstock, and as they say, the rest is history. I find it interesting that Max's farm was in Bethel, New York, which the word Bethel is Hebrew for house of God. The town of Bethel, like Woodstock, could have said no way to these kids, but instead, for the most part, the town opened their arms to a group of young people. And now, 50 plus years later, we have an event that has shaped a generation. Not only did they welcome these kids, but they got much more than what they had bargained for. See, the projected attendance for Woodstock was between 30 and 50,000 people. But the week before the concert, people started coming. The town started filling up. And well, there were thousands long before the concert started on Friday. And when the concert did start on Friday, well, the crowd was an estimated 400,000 people. Now, when you have 10 times the number of people, this changes things, and it could have been a disaster, much like the situation the disciples found themselves in. There just isn't enough, not enough food. And you know, when there's not enough, there can be fear, the fear of scarcity, and people can get protective and sometimes even violent. But that was not the case for Woodstock. Not only did the concert goers take care of one another, but the people of Bethel came together as well. See, when the venue ran out of food, the community responded. And organizers, much like the disciples, had enough food for a handful, but not enough for all of them. And that is when Bethel, the house of God, went into action. See, the roads were jammed, packed, backed up, and the supply trucks had no way of making it in. So the people from the town came together, and they cleared out their pantries, their canned goods, and they made sandwiches, and they grabbed all the food they could, and then it was flown by helicopter to the masses. And yes, everyone was fed. See, people coming together with a common goal of listening to music in peace found a way to not only get along, but to truly become a community of love and care. See, people who come together with a common cause tend to support one another and to take care of one another. Not only that, but the community responded. I have to tell you, as I read the feeding of the 5,000, it makes me think of the spirit of Woodstock. People wanted to get away from the world, a world that had become violent and painful. They wanted a place to celebrate life and community. Sure, at Woodstock they did smoke a little stuff and drop a little stuff and dance around naked, but they also created a place to share true community with other like-minded people, people seeking peace, harmony, and love. I'm sure the promoters and Max Yasker could have been terribly disappointed with the event if they had been committed to looking at it in a certain way and having a financial success. Instead, they had to shift their position, shift their thinking, because it was clear early on that this was not going to be the business success they had thought it was going to be. Yet somehow all of them found a way to shift that expectation. For the promoters, who, as it would turn out, had no way of collecting tickets, they lost a lot of money on the event. Performers couldn't get to stage at the slated performance times, and well, the plan that was put together was a disaster. But God had a bigger plan. From the start with Richie Havens, who did this impromptu freedom song, which became the battle cry for a generation, to Joe Cocker's I Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. The music and the timing were inspired beyond what could ever be put on paper. Perhaps the one who had the greatest ability to shift in thinking was that farmer, Max Yasker. See, Max was far from a hippie. In fact, he was a conservative Republican who supported the Vietnam War. But he was also a father who longed for a relationship with his kids. And he believed that this event would create a space to help with that generation gap, benefiting not only him and his family, but others as well. He wanted to find a way for his family and all people to live in peace and harmony. And this was one way he could participate in getting there. In the middle of the festival, Max, who had never spoken before 20 people before, got on stage and said to the attendees, "If 500,000 young people can come together and have 3 days of fun and music and nothing but fun and music, no violence, then God bless you for it." And indeed, the event was a blessing. At the end of Woodstock, Max had over $100,000 in damages and repair, and he had only made $35,000 on renting the farm out. He could have sued and lost, but he didn't. He was committed to a larger vision, a vision of communication between generations, a commitment to music and peace and harmony, and that was accomplished. In many ways, Woodstock is the modern feeding of the 5,000. I mean, throughout history, God shows us there is more than enough, and we just need to open our hearts and minds and take a chance. Both our lesson from Matthew and Woodstock remind us it's messy. Shifting our positive focus may involve letting go of some long-held beliefs. It might involve getting dirty and making sandwiches and even cleaning up after 500,000 people. A mess you didn't make. But when we're in it together, it's worth it. Friends, there's a lesson to be learned for our world today. We need to find a way to continue to come together, seeking peace and harmony and love. And it can be messy, but I believe that God is at the center of all of it and can and will change our hearts. So get out there, my friends, and start feeling groovy with peace, love, and harmony. Amen.
Salam aleikum. You know, a lot of times when we say peace, we say salam. But salam aleikum means peace be with you. I'm going to read you a story now that talks about how we can spread peace. Salam aleikum. You can try to turn off the sun. I'm still going to shine anyway and tell everyone we're having some fun today. We can go wherever you want to and do whatever you like. Let's just have a good time. Assalamu alaikum. I just want to spread love and peace and all of my happiness to everyone that I meet, because I'm feeling spectacular. Uh-oh, somebody got a flat tire in that picture. Let's see what's going to happen. I love it when we love one another. Oh. Give thanks every day. Give thanks every day for this life, living with a smile on my face. Oh, she got her cat rescued. Now she's opening the door for the mama and her little baby. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, look, there's the mom giving away books, spreading the love. Spread peace on the earth. Cherish the love that is around us. Spread peace on the earth and treasure the love. Let it surround us. Always be kind and always remind one another. Peace on the earth every day. Assalamu alaikum. How can you spread love and peace today and every day? Have a great, great week.
Go now in peace, my dear friends, and may the love of God be yours today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Amen. Go forth, feeling groovy.
Might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break.
I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space.
With the air like I don't care, baby, by the way.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you know what happiness is to you.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like that's what you wanna do.
Here come bad news talking this and that.
Yeah, well give me all you got and don't hold back. Yeah,
Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine.
yeah. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you know what happiness is to you.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like that's what you wanna do.
Bring me down, it ain't nothing.
Bring me down, my level's too high. Bring me down, can't nothing.
Bring me down, let me tell you now.
Bring me down, can't nothing.
Bring me down, my level's too high.
To bring me down, I can't nothing.
Bring me down, I said. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you know what happiness is to you.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like that's what you wanna do.
Because I'm happy.
Clap along if you feel like a seems I got to have a change of scene. 'Cause every night I have the strangest dream, imprisoned by the way it could have been. Left here on my own, or so it seems. I got to leave before I start to scream. But someone locked the door and took the keys. You feeling alright? I'm not feeling too good myself. You feeling alright?